Starmer started this appeal to Labour MPs last night at a meeting of backbenchers and Labour peers. He had a few tricky questions there. He told them that the welfare system as it works at the moment was indefensible and unfair, but there's clearly a feeling at the top of the Labour machine that reception wasn't good enough in there, and there is trouble ahead because Keir Starmer is taking the extremely unusual measure of calling in every Labour MP who isn't a minister into number 10 over the next 2 days to try to persuade them face to face that actually they need to back these £5, maybe £6 billion worth of welfare cuts that you were just describing. I reckon he's carved out about 5 hours from his diary, not allowing for prep time to do this. This doesn't happen very often, and I think it's happening because some of these measures, not all of them, but some of them need to be passed in a vote in the House of Commons. And people at the top of the Labour Party think the number of rebels currently, if they were guessing, that could be in their own ranks passing these are potentially in the scores. One source said to me, potentially 80 MPs, and we could be looking at resignations from the top, i.e. from the Cabinet table. And Cabinet today was a very interesting meeting, not unrelated to all of this, because these cuts are being made necessary because of the fiscal rules on borrowing that Rachel Reeves wants to abide by. And they came up for discussion in Cabinet today. I'm told that all but 2 members of the Cabinet actually contributed to the discussion. Again, unusual to have quite so many people chipping in. At the end of the discussion, Rachel Reeves turned around and said, well, it looks like we've got everybody backing. We've got Cabinet backing for my fiscal rules. Well, I'm told by people who were party to that discussion that was not what it felt like in the room, and that perhaps nearly as many as half of the people who contributed, half the Cabinet who contributed, suggested these rules might be adjusted or rethought. An extraordinary situation for the government to be in, only 8 months in office.
Indeed. Thanks, Gary. So, who would the proposed cuts hit hardest? Our social affairs editor, Jackie Long, is in the London newsroom for us now. Jackie.
Well, there is the politics of all of this, and there is the economics. And in the end, they dovetail, some people would say collide, into the very real impact on people's lives. Much of the focus is on PIP, or personal independence payments. Now, around 3.6 million people get a personal independence payment. And according to the Office for Budget Responsibility, the average award is almost £7,000 a year. Now, those awards are specifically to help people facing the additional costs of living with a disability or a long-term health condition. That can be anything from higher heating bills to special equipment or transport costs. Now, before the pandemic, around 165,000 people in England and Wales were making new claims for PIP each year. By 2023, that figure had doubled to over 372,000, something successive governments, the last Conservative and this new Labour government, have described as unsustainable, hence talk of these really significant cuts.
And what would be the impact then, Jackie, of those significant cuts that you mentioned?
Well, according to a coalition of 16 charities, which has written an open letter to the Chancellor, a cut of this size would have a catastrophic impact on disabled people up and down the country. The charity Scope claims without PIP, 700,000 more disabled households would end up in poverty, and poverty levels are already especially high in families where someone has a disability. Now, of course, the government is framing this very much around reforming a broken welfare system. Some interesting echoes of the last welfare revolution, as it was called back in 2010 under the coalition government, with much talk of helping people get back into work. But in targeting PIP, there is, as someone in the sector put it to me today, a breakdown in logic, because PIP is awarded to disabled people whether or not they work, and there are plenty who use their PIP to help facilitate them going to work. Now, data shows we are becoming an iller society. Around a third of new claims are for mental health issues, and critics say the government should be trying to understand and tackle the long-term drivers of this. But that long-term strategy won't save the government the money it says it needs to save right now.